It does seem like most people have arrived, so I'm going to go on mute, and Beth, it is all yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth Babcock, the head of Economic Mobility Pathways, Empath, your host for this afternoon's Disrupting Poverty Together Summit. This is day 2 of the summit. We had a really good day yesterday with members of the Economic Mobility Exchange, and it's a pleasure to welcome our members back and also other public audience members who are joining us for day 2. So I hope that we will have a very good afternoon this afternoon. It is a real pleasure to be with all of you. You know, in 2014, we started the Economic Mobility Exchange with a dream that sharing our mobility mentoring tools and processes with others would help us create a shared platform to learn from each other, to take these tools and processes and to work with them in our own communities, and in the process to figure out ways to strengthen mobility mentoring and coaching for low-income families to help them move out of poverty, and to take the intellectual gifts and the work of all our organizations to help each other and support each other in doing this work in a more powerful way. And I have to say that the membership exceeded our wildest dreams. You know, we're now at over 140 organizations across the United States and other countries, and growing very rapidly. And together we have served over 200,000 participants using economic mobility tools, the mobility mentoring tools and processes. In the process have learned so much from each other, and the power of what we do together was really brought home to all of us, I think, this past year during the pandemic, when in real time we all helped each other figure out how to support staff and participants through the stresses of the past year, how to navigate coaching virtually, how to keep ourselves safe, and how to take care of the thousands of new questions that popped up every day for all of us on how to keep moving this work forward. So together today, you're going to be hearing from a panel that's going to be talking about just that, what we give to each other and what we've learned about how to coach low-income families and help them achieve their own dreams. And I'm really pleased to have heading up today's panel and moderating today's panel, Empath's own Dr. Jennifer Lowe. And Jennifer has really been with us since the beginning. She started with the exchange almost right after it opened and has been helping us develop our connections to each other and learning from each other ever since then, in about 2015, if I'm remembering correctly, Jennifer. And she's a perfect person to do this job, not only because she is warm and talented and eager to learn and share with others, but also because she got her PhD in how you leverage social networks to realize the things you want to accomplish. And so it was kind of perfect to have her background with Empath and also academically brought to us to help us grow this work together. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Jennifer, who will bring to you all the background of the wonderful panelists that we have with us today. Thank you everyone for your contributions, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you so much. That was a very generous and kind welcome. Thanks for kicking us off. Welcome everyone to today's panel, The Power of Collaboration, Changing the Narrative Together. We wanted to convene leaders from nonprofit organizations that are active members of Empath's Economic Mobility Exchange Learning Network to share their experience and reflections on the power and possibilities in using the mobility mentoring economic mobility coaching model, and the power and possibilities in partnering with a collaborative learning network and with other organizations who are also seeking to change the narrative of poverty and ideally transforming the way that work is done within our human service sector. And as you'll hear, each of the panelists represent very diverse organizations. So they range from in their size, in the type of services they offer, in their geographic locations, geographic settings. However, they all share a common interest in disrupting poverty within their community. After the panel discussion, we'll be sure to save some time to take questions from the audience. So please be sure to use the Q&A button featured in the bottom of the Zoom menu to submit your questions. You could submit questions all throughout the panel, and we'll just make sure we have some time at the end to take them. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our 4 panelists today. Delphia Simmons, the Chief Impact and Learning Officer at COTS, Creating Opportunity to Succeed in Detroit, Michigan. John Till, the Senior Vice President of Strategy and Innovations, otherwise known within his organization as the 2Gen and Brain Science Guy at the Family Partnership in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Kristi King-Brock, who's coming to us from Anderson, South Carolina. She's the Executive Director of AIM, Anderson Interfaith Ministries. And Craig Gebers, the Senior Director of Workforce Development and Support Services at Zepf Center in Toledo, Ohio. So thank you, welcome, and thank you all for sharing with us today. I'd like to start off today's conversation by asking each of you why your organization joined the Exchange Learning Network and whether you've had that sort of exchange experience, right? That back and forth exchanging of information, learning and sharing with other members of the network. So John, I'd like to kick it off to you to start us off today. If you could unmute yourself first. Thanks.
Apologies. So the Family Partnership was motivated to adopt mobility mentoring as a strategy because one of our programs, which is called Pride, works with youth and adult survivors of sex trafficking. That program's been in operation for more than 40 years. We know how to get people the help they need to get out of the life, but getting on with your life is a completely different scenario. People who've been involved with sex trafficking face employment discrimination, discrimination in housing. They're even blocked from some academic internships because of their records. And so there's really a great deal of support that we need to offer people so that they can really transform their lives. And, you know, we're working for an intergenerational impact so that the next generation is less precarious economically. So that's what motivated us to get involved with mobility mentoring. And it's been really helpful to be able to interact with other exchange members. We knew going in that the family organization that started this model has a lot of experience with women and girls who have experienced a variety of kinds of victimization. So that gave us some faith on the front end that the organization that created this model had experiences that were relevant to our work. And we found that the range of organizations and the type of work that they're doing really does have things to offer as we're thinking about how to implement the model in our own organization.
Thanks, John. Craig, can I have you go next?
We became interested in mobility coaching. We were at a conference held by Health and Human Services, U.S. Department of Health and Human Service Administration of Children and Family, and as part of our Health Professional Opportunities Grant, where we had roundtable discussions on best practices. And I think when we heard how mobility coaching was being used as kind of a case management tool, it really provided some very good structure. And it tied to our efforts in our community, the Bridges Out of Poverty work that we have been doing in our community for the last 15 years. We always had the ability to do the groups with participants through getting ahead classes, but the mobility coaching provides that one-on-one case management intervention that I think kind of guided us. I think anytime you have the opportunity to network with different organizations across the nation, you hear best practice and emerging practices. And so we were really looking at that as part of our effort. We have been collaborating with probably about 3 to 4 organizations in our community to embrace the 2Gen concepts. And we thought that this model would further that effort as well. So I think that's kind of why we joined the network, was to kind of gain insight into what other people are doing, what are emerging practices, and what can we learn from others. So that's kind of why we have been involved in this work. and have kind of embraced this is our major motto of case management. And we don't call it case management anymore. We call it coaching, mobility coaching. So we've adapted to that, and we're very happy to be involved, part of the network.
Thanks, Craig. I'm hearing a theme here of sort of trying to figure this out collectively rather than us all trying to do this in silos, but really learning from each other, which I appreciate because that's one of the main drivers behind the network itself. Kristi, can I ask you the same question?
Sure. Jennifer, I'm going to start by telling a little bit about our work, so that brings that into context. I am the director for Anderson Interfaith Ministries, which is a 31-year-old organization that operates on a continuum of services from basic needs stabilization to programs that lead to self-sufficiency. Our Women and Children Succeeding program has had 171 women now secure self-sufficiency through college education. 4 of those have gone on to receive PhDs. In 2011, we had 3 women recognized in the 20 under 40 leadership for Anderson County, and all 3 of those women came into our program homeless. That program is what introduced us to the mobility mentoring. One of the partners in a collective impact grant that we had invited mobility mentoring for training, and they asked if I would like to participate. Very quickly, I realized the benefit that could bring to our organization. So we joined the network, and we have been to both conferences in Boston and continue to encourage others, because like you say, truly the collective impact is huge for our industry.
Thanks, Kristi, and congratulations on those incredible outcomes. That's really transformative work that you're doing. And Delphia, last but not least, can I kick the question to you?
Sure. So the word that comes to mind when I think about why we joined the network was destiny, because we at that time were just transitioning into our theory of change, which aligns perfectly. It's as if we were all in the same room together planning it perfectly with the bridge to self-sufficiency. So I was at a conference in New York. At the time, it was Crentonton's Women's Union was presenting. And when they presented, I immediately saw like the affinity between our programs and our, our methods. And so our CEO is actually an integral life coach. And so we already had that whole, coaching vibe that we were going to bring as a part of our theory of change. We already had that 2-gen approach, knowing that because we do affordable housing, we do some development of housing, we do emergency shelter, childcare, that if we were going to have a really true impact on poverty, we were going to needed to be a 2-generation approach. So that was a part of our theory of change. So when we met in New York, we immediately exchanged information. The executive team came to Boston to meet, and we immediately saw this as an opportunity to like really cut a lot off of our own learning curve, because we didn't know what we didn't know. And so we've been members ever since. I think that was in 2015.
Thanks, Delphia. I love the destiny of it. that very aligned in our thinking and in our approach, which is always nice. I'd like to ask the panel if you could share whether or how your work has changed since your organization joined the network. So essentially, has the mobility mentoring model made a difference for your participants, for staff, for your organization? And Kristi, can I kick it to you to answer first?
Sure. The bridge tool, the bridge to self-sufficiency, was huge in helping us be able to bring measurement to our work and self-sufficiency, and also being able to give the ladies an opportunity for a pre-assessment and to look at their growth on each of those pillars. So we could celebrate, or if they were not growing where we thought they needed to, we could then look at developing a new plan for them. So being able to use the bridge tool has really benefited our organization and our program with metrics.
Thanks, Kristi. Yeah, clearly your learning organization, one that's collecting, not just collecting data for the sake of collecting data, but also really reflecting and thinking about how to improve what works, what doesn't work. And glad to hear that the bridge and those mobility mentoring metrics help you do so. Craig, can I kick it to you next?
Well, I think I would agree as it relates to the bridge as a tool to really help guide staff. On a larger picture, the mobility mentoring that we've embraced, and we have now put that in a lot of our federal grants that we have applied for. And we have been successful in securing, in just the last year, $10 million of federal grants using mobility mentoring as our emerging practice. And I think through that, I think what we're learning to do is help from a practice standpoint. We keep on talking to our staff about it's not case management, it's coaching skills. It's helping people develop skills to move and progress in their life. And it's a different mentality from a staff development standpoint that we're working with. It is how we're coaching people and how we can help them get to those different individual goals in the domain area. So that has made a significant impact. And I think it changes the conversation to the traditional case management and filling out boxes. You know, what it is, it's goal oriented, it's outcome focused. And a lot of federal grants, that's what you're driven by, is what are your goals, what are your objectives, and how are you moving people forward? And so I think we're very excited in that model. And we have a grant writer that I work very closely with in using this model to explain how we're going to help people grow and develop. And I think that's where our business is in the area of developing skills that they can function better in the home, community, workplace, school, with their family. And I think that's why we embrace this so much.
Thanks, Craig. Congratulations on the $10 million in federal grants. That's quite impressive. And I think you're speaking to the shift into coaching for staff is not inconsequential, right? That can be a very, it's a really important shift. And oftentimes I hear people talk about moving from a transactional relationship to a transformational relationship. And that's what we hope coaching does for families and certainly for that relationship with staff who are mentoring. Delphia, can I kick it off? Same question to you.
Yes, I would say in addition to what Kristi mentioned around really supporting measurement, which has been hugely a big part of the work and how we've transitioned into being more, I don't like always to say data driven, but data informed as an organization, even to the point of like bringing a person on board to focus on that. Empath has definitely been a part of that. But another key piece for us has been the brain science learning and all of the information around stress and crisis and what that does as far as people's ability to like move forward and how we have to be informed by that in our approaches. That's been extremely helpful, and it's definitely had a huge impact on our work here.
Thanks, Delphia. Yeah, we're really, I think, indebted to so many of the researchers who have been sharing with us and our academic partners who've been sharing with us the impact that chronic stress, trauma, the experiences of living in poverty can have on folks. And so being able to bring that alive in a very applied way has really transformed the way that we work as well. Thanks for sharing. So over the last year, working within this COVID-19 pandemic, we've tried to continue to support, obviously, people in helping to navigate their next steps. And it's presented such a unique challenge for so many of us, so many organizations across the membership. I'm wondering if you could share how the pandemic has impacted or influenced the way in which you're working in your community. And Craig, can I start it off with you?
Oh man, we have learned so much this past year. The pandemic has really has been a real challenge in recruiting for participants, for programs, and a lot of it out of a variety of different reasons. One, schools being closed and people having to stay home with their children. It's been impacted by risk issues of when shots were not available where people wanted to participate in the workforce. People were very hesitant. So I think during this period of time, what we continuously was working with our staff on is staying in touch with our clients. When it initially had to shut down, one of the things we told our staff to do when they work from home, we want you to call all your clients, you know, at least every week. And what we got feedback, and we called that part of the coaching kind of the survive mode, but the impact we got from our clients was, oh my gosh, you're actually working and following up to see how I'm doing. And I think it was that relationship building that we were able to have. My staff said we had some very good conversations with our clients and helping them navigate. In the middle of this, we were running a class with Owens Community College here, and we had to convert from an in-person to an online. And we're fortunate enough through our grants to be able to purchase computer and technology for our participants so they could continue online. But we had to also coach them through on how to use the technology and adapt to Zoom. So I think that whole coaching process and being there for the clients during COVID made us understand the value of what we do. And it strengthened our importance of skill building with our participants and creating a roadmap, continue to move forward. And I think sometimes that structure, that's what individuals needed. So I think COVID has been a large challenge. It has changed the type of work we've done and probably will continue to change how we move forward, especially with the use of technology such as Zoom and things of that nature. Not to say that I like Zoom, because there's days I'm zoomed out, but it is our new tool in our toolbox to connect to people.
Well, Craig, so I have a follow-up question then for you. Do you see some of those continuing, either whether it be doing more online work or that increased communication that you were able to have with participants that helped to strengthen those relationships? Do you see that continuing post-pandemic?
Because we have really are introducing this coaching, yes, that will continue. The technology side of it is actually have now partnered and are working in an agreement with PCs for People that basically takes old computers, rehabs them, and then we can distribute it to the community. So our partnership in using technology is important. The reason, because of the digital divide that impacts people in poverty, we saw this very evident during COVID, is people didn't have technology, so they could not engage. So by creating access to technology and helping them use, it opens a world to them, will hopefully give them more of a competitive advantage in the future to help them move forward, because our work world is changing, and this COVID has changed it considerably. So we need to help them and coach them through this adapting to the change that's out there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think you're hitting on something right there. As we've all sort of adapted to the pandemic and working differently, our workforce is also needing to adapt as it's changing. The labor market is changing, and being able to share that and help strengthen those skills to stay flexible is going to be so critical, especially in the future of the labor market. Delphia, can I ask you the same question, how your work has sort of been changed or influenced by the pandemic?
So for us, because a part of our operations is running a 24-hour emergency shelter for families, we really had to make sure that our staff was okay, because it was at extreme risk, of course, that they, had to like show up. So they didn't have the option of working from home, like so many other parts of the organization. So I think we've done a really good job of making sure that they're okay. And then because we have a high number of children in the emergency shelter and in some of our other programs as well, we had to look at academically how far this was pushing a lot of the children even farther behind. Now they were already behind the curve because of poverty. And so now what we were seeing is like just this, overwhelm with the parents where they weren't always able to, put them on the online platforms and, sit with them and do all of that. So one of the things that we ended up doing is creating a virtual learning lab. It's in person, but it's for virtual learning, because one of our spaces that we used to have a Head Start program in opened up because of COVID. And so we transitioned that into a lab space where the desks are distanced, the shields are up, and we have academic support specialists to come in and support the kids in logging on and making sure that they're actually connecting virtually to their classrooms, but also provides some support for the parents, because we had even, parents on our staff who were saying, I can't even figure some of this stuff out. So I know that some of our parents who are in crisis are having additional challenges. So we made sure we addressed that as well. Of course, we've instituted hazard pay and some of the other things that come along with that. But those are some of the things we've done. We've actually applied for some funding to do some outdoor learning space in anticipation of how long this will last, and really leveraging that outdoor space more. We have a beautiful courtyard at that facility, so learning how to use that more. And then we did get some funding because of COVID, where we were able to provide laptops and technology to the families, because one of the things that we were finding is that for some families, depending on how many children, you might need 3 or 4 laptops in that family, because those children might be online at the same time. And so, yeah, it's been like we've definitely made lemonade, so to speak.
What a great resource for families that you've created. And I think the theme that I'm hearing is, although I think many of us knew that there was a digital divide, it really threw the spotlight on it in a much, put it out there much more widely, much more publicly. And I'm hearing in each of our communities, there are folks or organizations or programs that are stepping up to donate laptops or computers or Wi-Fi, which has been nice. Kristi, can I ask you the same question?
Absolutely. And I'll start with the tech divide. For rural South Carolina, and if you know much about South Carolina, we have a lot of rural areas. So it wasn't just providing people with a laptop. Broadband is a huge issue. And so we have to be able to figure out, how do we get broadband to every American? Because it's, when everything moves to online, then you have people that are totally disconnected. We did with ours, much like Delphia, we have some programs that couldn't stop. Our food ministry, Friday, we had a leadership meeting and started talking about how do we start preparing for this pandemic, and we didn't have time because that Sunday, everything shut down. So I was on the phone with my leadership team and I said, we have to feed people. We can't not go to work tomorrow. And I said, so we're just going to do a drive-through. And we started with a drive-through, which I was sharing with some of the folks earlier. Today, we celebrated a permanent drive-through with a ribbon cutting. We have done permanent construction of our food ministry so that it lends itself to a permanent drive-through approach. And the beauty of that was the effectiveness, the efficiency in which we could serve our clients. So that we continued, but a lot of our programs, we did move to an online platform. And like Craig says, we'll never go back to business the way it was before. We will continue to see people in person, hopefully more and more as people are safer. But there will never be another time where people don't have access to our programs virtually and online. I also see that with my board. I don't know about you guys, but we've started having hybrid board meetings where some folks who are comfortable and want to come in are coming in, but we still have the opportunity to Zoom in. And I too, I'm sick of having to present like this because you don't get the feedback from your participants, but we had to do what we had to do to be safe. So we've learned a lot. It's been challenging and frustrating, but I think there's been some good learning opportunities that have come from COVID that has made our work better.
Thank you, Kristi, and congratulations on celebrating the grand opening of your permanent food bank structure. That's really, really incredible. And I agree. I think that well, it has been an incredibly challenging year. I think we are learning and adapting, and we're finding that some of the ways that we're adapting are actually helping to be a little bit more efficient. It's incredible. We never would be able to bring together. I see we have 162 people on the call right now, 162 people in person in Boston for an hour. So it's there are some good takeaways from it. So when I think about the mobility mentoring model, and in our work, even here at Empath, we're always trying to stay future oriented. We're always trying to move forward in what we do. And so I'm wondering for the panel, what you would see as being the future of your work in your community in disrupting poverty. And John, we haven't gotten to hear from you for a while, so I'd love to have you start us off.
Sure, and maybe I'll dovetail a little bit with COVID. So one of the things that we found providing services virtually during COVID is that for some families, like immigrant families who may have fears about the police, it's actually feels safer to them and easier to participate virtually than kind of corralling everyone together, getting in a car, worrying if you're going to be pulled over. So there are some populations for whom it makes a lot of sense to interact virtually. And so thinking ahead, we need to be thinking about, well, we have these tools now and families are getting used to them, so we can always offer this. The second is as we look to the future, and our facilities, like I'm in a brand new building, which is just in the process of opening. It has a large community room that even with 6 feet of social distancing, you can accommodate 20 people. And we're wrapping up a 2-year pilot of a new version of mobility mentoring that's whole family. And it's called Intergen. And as part of that model, there's a tool called the family carpool lane, which is a great tool in which you engage the whole family in looking at 10 aspects of family strength and where the family is at. And that's a whole family discussion. Well, that's a headache to do virtually. But one of the things I've been coaching our staff, Maria and Andrea, on is that's something you could have a family come in for. That space is big enough to do social distancing. You could do it in an hour. You could be done, and that'd be a great use of the space even during the pandemic. So thinking a lot going forward about what tools we use virtually, what do we continue? We know that another mobility exchange partner, Children's Wisconsin, has surveyed their program participants statewide and discovered that 40% of them prefer virtual services to face-to-face. So we really need to be thinking about how to incorporate these strategies on an ongoing basis. So some of the next areas where we're trying to push the envelope around mobility mentoring and its application is, first of all, we started using this model in our Pride program, which works with survivors of sex trafficking, but we're also using it with families involved in our child care centers, with families coming to the organization for outpatient mental health therapy. So any client of the organization can use this. as well as we take referrals from some health clinics like the Mother Baby Center at Hennepin County Medical Center. And one of the next applications that we're working on is that we've just received a contract from Hennepin County, where Minneapolis is based. They're involved in a large redesign of child protection services. And we proposed, and they agreed to work with us on this, to implement mobility mentoring as part of a intervention for families that have open child protection cases. And the thing that I like about that, that's also sort of a commonality with the sex trafficking work that we've done, is like, well, this is an opportunity to choose outcomes that are more focused on sustainability and the health and well-being of the family, building family strengths, than you might find in traditional criminal justice programs or child protection. I don't think anybody enters juvenile justice or adult justice or child protection just to do gotcha work, right? But that's often how the system feels to families, and it's low trust work. And we've done the parenting skills development and case management work with families with open child protection cases. And it's hard to build trust with those families. And what we found as we implemented mobility mentoring in programs that traditionally did case management is that when you put these tools like the Bridge to Self-Sufficiency in the hands of program participants, all of a sudden they have a lot more choice and a lot more ownership of their goals. And the outcomes start to look much more significant. Than someone exited prostitution, or someone's child protection case was closed and they reunited with their child. Well, that's great. That's a good outcome. That's kind of what we want. But we want to know that the family is on a pathway towards well-being, and that that's sustainable after a 3-month case management time frame, because that's not a very long walk with a family. So looking at what comes next for us is that we're about to build out a mobility mentoring informed model within a child protection framework. And we also have a very specialized program that works with parents who have cognitive disabilities. And it's really about supporting their parenting skills as they're parenting very young children who are also eligible to be in our therapeutic preschools. So it's a great program, and we want to bring mobility mentoring into that too. So that's going to present some new challenges. How do you do mobility mentoring with parents who, have some cognitive disabilities? But I know we're going to learn a lot, and I really believe that what this program, approach offers is that the skills that we call parenting skills, or healthy parenting skills, or maternal sensitivity, those are the same skills that fall in the executive functioning bucket. It's like paying attention to the world, being able to bite your tongue, being able to deal flexibly with new situations. Parents have to learn those skills, right? And their executive functioning skills. So social science comes up with these different names for the skill sets, but mobility mentoring is one of the strategies for making those skills happen for families with young children. And that's really important to our organization.
Thank you for that, John. And I know you're already very well connected with Children's Wisconsin. And as you're talking, I'm thinking I'd love to connect you with a couple of other member organizations who are working in the child welfare space, where you can do hopefully some good learning and sharing with each other as you're developing this next phase of your work. Really look forward to that. Can I kick that same question about the future, with what you see the future of your work in disrupting poverty, to Delphia?
Sure. So we started out our theory of change in our emergency shelter. And a part of that was transitioning it to family zoning, family meaning, and it's made up mostly of unpartnered moms and children, but whoever the caregiver happens to be. So we've now kind of, pushed it into and integrating it into our supportive housing and affordable housing programs. But the next step for us is taking it into the community. And I think, definitely some learning that we can get from Empath, because I think that's how you started. And so, and we did it kind of the reverse. And it's very much a different approach when a person is in crisis in an emergency shelter, as opposed to a person in the community who's more settled and more, ready to engage. And so we're looking forward to like this next phase of our work with mobility mentoring. Yeah.
Thank you, Delphia. Kristi, same question.
Well, we'd love to continue to scale our Women and Children Succeeding program and have replications across the country. And another area that we have just completed a curriculum called, it's a soft skills curriculum called Aim High X Factor. And it really looks at the way the different socioeconomic classes see the world, communicate and make decisions. So we have been working with a large manufacturing company in Anderson, providing this training so that under-resourced individuals understand the expectations in the world of work. And the managers and supervisors understand why folks in long-term poverty make decisions and communicate the way they do. So if we can bridge that divide and create understanding, we think that folks can adapt to what those expectations are and be more successful. We have large opportunities for manufacturing, making really good wages here in the area that I'm in, but we almost set people up for failure because they get a job making $15 to $18 an hour with a full benefit package immediately, but we don't help them understand what the expectations of the world of work are. And what I'm talking about are the middle class rules and values that they have to operate under. And so we've had some real success just initiating this, and we hope to continue to offer it to more manufacturing companies and other organizations.
Really interesting. Thank you, Kristi. And Craig, same question.
Well, I think the future is for us in mobility coaching is the ability to build a relationship and a trusting relationship with our participants. I would also say from a policy standpoint, we need to look at how we fund programs. A lot of people want a quick action in 6 months and an outcome. But if we're going to move the bar on poverty, we're going to need to help people develop skills that includes their technical skills for jobs, their ability to understand the hidden rules within the middle class, and help them to develop effective communication skills, problem solving, goal setting that can help them thrive and to be able to move out of poverty. And I think, we've been fortunate enough to be able to secure some 5-year grants. Those are life-changing grants. We've been able to take people who were homeless and move them into stable housing, into a nurse's aide trained to an LPN, and now making $45,000 a year, which in Toledo is a lot of money, but it takes time. And I think what I would say our future is how do we help people develop the skills? And that's built through relationship and trust that they have in us and being there to help them navigate. They need so many tries at the ramp. And, Kristi was talking about the developing of understanding employers' expectations. I think that's very important. At the same time, we also have to educate the business community of you have a potential workforce, but you're going to have to spend some time developing that workforce and understanding kind of the rules of poverty and why people do what they do and how they live in the tyranny of the moment. And I think we've learned that a lot in our community through the Bridges Out of Poverty. So in our future, we see the ability to hopefully use this tool in our grant proposals that will create a path for people to be able to grow, learn skills, develop, and move forward. And I just think that that is one of our most important things is developing people. Every employer tells me we need people, we don't have workforce. Well, it takes time. And sometimes the trauma that a lot of our clients live in, whether it be housing instability, food instability, education instability, impacts their ability to develop those skills. So we need that time to develop them. So I think from a future standpoint is we keep on talking about coaching skills and coaching progress. And that takes time to really perfect that skill in people. So that's kind of where we're at, where we want to continue to move forward.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, thank you. It's something that we I think realized on the call, right? That poverty isn't a quick fix. That oftentimes it does take that multi-year investment in people, investment of resources, time, attention, skill building, all of that. And what a great message to be able to share that. Hopefully can influence programs, funders, the way in which we do our work. Lastly, before I open it up to the audience for questions, I wanted to see if you could each very briefly share what you hope to see as the future of the exchange as we're working together in this very collaborative network. What is the possibility or the future of the exchange? And again, very briefly, but maybe John, I'd love to start with you.
Well, I think I'd like to, now that I'm seeing some folks here who are from Minnesota, that's very exciting. And I'd like to see if we can start developing some local alliances to approach funders that are looking for networked approaches. So if you are joining us from Minnesota, I'd appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and learn more about what's going on. Really, same thing if you're right over the border in Wisconsin, love to have a conversation too. So that's kind of one potential of the networks is to get even more, we have an international network, but we can also localize some of the partnerships and opportunities.
Thank you. Kristi, what do you see?
Well, I think the network can lend itself to a collective voice, especially with systems change. I think we have a lot of issues that need to be worked on that individually we can never make a real difference, but collectively we can. I see the network as an opportunity to leverage resources, to bring that learning from one another, to be able to share best practices that we've learned in our work and lessons learned so people don't have to make the same mistakes that we've made. And I see the network as a way to showcase organizations that are doing good work and possibly even draw philanthropic dollars into areas that really struggle for that. Like South Carolina is an area that has very little philanthropic dollar flowing through. And the monies that we do have are very geographically limited. So the network can bring so much to so many.
Thanks, Kristi. And lastly, Craig, if you could answer the same question, and then I'll open it up to the audience.
I think where we need to go is kind of the ability to connect to other organizations, to hear about innovation. How do we adapt to the changing environment we're in? I mean, COVID has turned our world really, really quickly, and that was a rapid change. But we found some innovative ways of doing things, and I think working as part of the network is, what are those innovative ways? I also think having a collective voice of how we can move people forward is important. Our most important asset of this nation is our people. All the potential there is, but how do we take that potential and move it in a way that creates opportunities for all people is, I think, the most important thing we need to do. So I think the investment in human capital is vital to our nation, our communities, to help us move forward. So that's where I think is a collective voice and innovative approaches.
Thank you, Craig. Emily, do we have some questions from the audience for our panel?
Yes, we have at least 3. I suspect we'll have a 4th shortly. The first question that we received is, what role, if any, have local libraries had in supporting your work? So, not sure who wants to answer it first, but
We work with the library a little. I think it's, I think they're trying to refer into Toledo. A lot of times the library serves some of our homeless individuals, so their ability to connect people. I think from a 2Gen perspective of taking advantages of the resources the library has from their technology standpoint to kids being able to read and get services there. I think that's kind of where our connection has been. We've held some of our trainings in the libraries because they have beautiful facilities. But I think from a 2Gen perspective is connecting kids to the library and learning the value of reading and learning from that.
I would say similar to that, it's been more sharing of resources that are available. Nothing like what they do in Seattle, where, you know, people who are in the community who are unhoused can like hang out in the library all day. And we have a huge public library that's not far from our one of our facilities. But yeah, more just like sharing the community resources and, you know, letting us know that those are available, including the use of space.
We probably have not partnered with the libraries in the way that we need to, but our Hennepin County libraries have done something pretty amazing during COVID, which is that they have eliminated fines for overdue books. If you lose a book, you still have to pay for it, but returning books late is no longer something that's fine. So that really lifts a weight off of low income people and people like me who are procrastinators. So I think, you know, in terms of the potential for library utilization, that really opens the door in some new ways. And we, in the past, have had really good partnerships with our library system around teen pregnancy prevention work. Like they had staff in their libraries who were teen pregnancy prevention experts that youth could talk to. So youth who we were working with in school, the libraries were working with when they would come to the library after school. And I kind of need to think through what might be some ways that we could work in parallel around mobility mentoring.
Thank you. Emily, other questions from the audience?
Yes. This is a question for all panelists from David Rosen. Do you find that any of your clients need adult foundational skills, like basic skills, as part of their plan to move to self-sufficiency? If so, what does your organization do to address these skills?
I think we do find that quite a bit among some of the parents coming into our emergency shelter program. And a lot of that is supported through our continuum of care and our COC and the resources that come there. But we also try as much as possible to have as much impact while we have them with us. Because we believe it's like, sometimes it's just 1 or 2 things that kind of can be that tipping point for someone in keeping them engaged. And so we bring as much services on site as we can, and by partnering with local mental health organizations. And we even have some contractual relationships with child therapists and that sort of thing. So we try to make sure that it's extremely accessible while they're on site in the emergency shelter.
We're part of the American Jobs Center, Ohio Means Jobs in Toledo. And so we have had a major focus on helping people develop their basic skills. We've done that through a couple of things. One, our partnerships with our GED providers, or in Ohio, Aspire. So they're on site, were on site before COVID. They moved to online. And then we've also worked with ACT product to help people get their work, a national certification, a work ready certification. And so we've also had to help them work on their basic skills. We use a product through ACT called Career 101, which allows people to work at their own pace on their basic skills. And our coaches kind of help guide them through the different learning modules to help them develop skills, because in some of the pre-employment testing with employers, you have to have a certain level of testing. So that's kind of how we assist.
And I think we might have time for one more question, Emily.
Yeah, so we have two separate questions talking about mental health and partnering with community health providers. So and trying to think about how you work with like local community health providers and working with participants on getting the mental health services they need. If you could answer either one of those, you can pick one.
I'll go first. Our organization is one of the largest mental health and substance use providers in Northwest Ohio. So there is a natural connection to our workforce services and our support. So we're able to make internal referrals, and also what we're trying to do is also trying to change the language somewhat and try to build or kind of knock down the wall stigma of mental health and substance use, and really talk to people instead of getting counseling is maybe we need to work on getting you some new skill sets to be able to manage some of the life stressors. So because people a lot of times won't engage in treatment because of stereotyping and not wanting to be labeled. So I think that's what we've been doing. I think if you work in workforce, one of the biggest challenges you see is substance use and mental health challenges of people being able to attain and maintain employment. So we have a natural built-in system that we're very happy to be, a part of.
Thanks.
And I can speak on the other side of just regular health care. We have a residency program at our local hospital, and we're one of the community medicine stops. In fact, we're the first community medicine stop, so that the emergency room residents know the services that we provide. I laugh and say that we're on speed dial from the hospital social work department, because if they need resources, we're the first phone call they make. So we also partner very closely with our free clinic. So we have a lot of interaction with our local hospital system, as well as our free clinic, which is really supported by the hospital system.
Thank you both. I want to be mindful of the time. We're at the 2 o'clock mark. So John, Craig, Kristi, Delphia, thank you. This was amazing. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us today. And those of you who are in the audience, thank you for participating. I really do appreciate some of these great questions that have been coming through. The session has been recorded, so it's going to be available on Empath's YouTube channel shortly, in case you have colleagues that have missed it and want to watch it. We're also having a meet and greet immediately after for the exchange. If anyone wants to learn a little bit more about mobility mentoring and the Exchange Learning Network, the link is in the chat. And we hope to see many of you later this afternoon at our virtual gala celebration starting at 4 p.m. Also link in a chat if folks are available, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate you all being here today.